In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, today we continue our story about, what do I say? How do you describe the story you find in the Gospel of John? Well, obviously, yes, it is about the life of Jesus Christ. But as we boil it down, we begin to look at it and we begin to see what Jesus does with these Pharisees. Now, we've already seen that he is now 6 months away from being crucified. It all started back when he healed a man at the pool of Bethsaida. And then the Jews tried to kill him. He fled back up into the land of Galilee. He's come back down now to Jerusalem, right in the hotbed. So I want us to think about it, notice it in that way, that in Jerusalem, in Judea, is where the Sadducees lived. Now there's a great deal of difference between Sadducees and Pharisees. Now there were some Sadducees up in around Galilee, but mainly they were Pharisees. And down in Jerusalem, there would be some Pharisees, but mainly they are Sadducees. And so it would be like in Washington today, there are Democrats and Republicans, but there are more Democrats than there are Republicans. And over at this time in Jerusalem, why it was much, much stronger in the Sadducees area than was in the Pharisees. Now the Sadducees are the ones who are the rulers. They're leading the fight now to kill Jesus. It has come to the point that they realize, politically speaking, that if they don't get rid of him, the common people are going to turn on them. And so just politically speaking, not religiously speaking, but just politically speaking, they know that Jesus has to go. In fact, later on, one of them will say, it is expedient that one man die for the whole nation, rather than the whole nation die. In other words, his philosophy was, if we don't get rid of Jesus, he's going to convert this nation. And if he converts this nation, then we're all going to be Christians. And that just will not work. So that was the argument that he gave to finally drive the final nail in of where they said, you're right, we must kill him, we must get rid of him. However, at this time, they have determined to do that. So they're trying to trap him, trying to do everything they can to find a reason to kill him. Now, religiously speaking, they are trying to find that reason within the religious realm of blasphemy. Can we catch him in blaspheming God? That is the big thing that they're really after right now. So as we start in the Gospel of John, now not as we start, but as we pick up our story right now and continue on in the 8th chapter, remember this, that this battle that's going on is boiling down to one thing. Jesus is claiming he is the Son of God. And these people are denying it and claiming that it's all just blasphemy. So the whole thing is going to be, is Jesus the Son of God? Has he come from God? Is he deity as he claims to be or not? Period. That really is it. And so they feel that they now have some reasons of where they can charge him with this. But as we begin today, I want you to notice how Jesus leads them on. He leads them on by saying certain things. Now, as he's saying these certain things, he's continuing his controversy there. Now, we might say that the first part of this book was that controversy of adultery, but now he's going to go ahead and continue to lead them on. Now, as he drives them in this way, I want you to notice two things in the wisdom of Jesus. Now, you can look at it and you can say, well, he answered this question with so much wisdom, and he did. But that's not what we're talking about today. There are two forms of logic to try to convert somebody. And one form is what would be called syllogisms, or logic, insomuch that, if you say all cats are animals, and that is a cat, therefore it's an animal. That's logical and it's concise, and you can put it in a form that's called syllogism, and we Western people like to do that. Then there is another way of where you talk and you lead the person on, kind of from step to step to step, and you lead them on until finally they have to admit, okay, this animal here is cat. Now notice as Jesus is going through that he uses both forms of this logic, but mainly the latter part. And it's really interesting because as I'm calling your attention to this, here really is the reason. That if somebody just opens up to the 8th chapter of the Gospel of John and begins reading, they begin to scratch their head and say, why did he even bring that up? What? This doesn't make sense. Well, even if this is true, what? And so you look at it. But if you see Jesus, and I want you to pick this out and look at it. If you see Jesus as he brings up this subject, and the subject is always directed to the question, am I the Son of God? And so he's going to make a statement that will provoke them into making another statement, and then he will say something about that statement they made, which will provoke them into something else, and he just keeps bringing it down to the point to where I can't deny it, I can't argue any farther, and when they get down to that point, they start to kill him again. They always come back and want to kill him, and then he escapes and goes his way. So kind of keep that in mind as we're studying this part now here of the Gospel of John. Now in our last class we had two great points, and we have so many verses in this chapter I'll not be able to take it verse by verse, but we're going to pull out the things that we've been talking about here so we can see this. Now Jesus laid claim to God as his Father. He came from the Father above. So he makes that statement. Now think about, what would you do if I made that claim today? Or we've got Gail over here, a visitor from that great, wonderful, magnificent state of Illinois. Well, he's moved out of it now, but okay. Suppose he stands up right now, and you look at him and say, what? And he tells you, I came from above. I didn't originate down here. I left heaven and I came from above. Would you have any questions for him? After class, I expect we'd all be just flocking around him. And what did you mean by that statement? That guy's crazy. He says he's different than we are. He came from above. And he has a Father that we don't have. And so this is going to provoke a great amount of controversy. Okay, so now then, they're going to come to him and they're going to say, but you bear witness of yourself, your witness is not true. According to the law, you had to have 2 or 3 witnesses. They said, you're the only guy that says this. I'm not about to accept the fact unless there's 2 or 3 witnesses. Now Jesus comes back and he said, now, even if I bear witness of myself, my witness is true. For I know where I came from and where I'm going, but you do not know where I came from and where I'm going. You judge according to flesh. I judge no one, and yet if I do judge, my judgment is true, for I'm not alone, but I am with the Father who sent me. It is also written in your law that the testimony of 2 men is true. I am one who bears witness of myself, and the Father who sent me bears witness of me. So I said, if you want to talk about witnesses, I'm telling you where I came from. That is a true statement, whether we have witnesses or not, but we do. Jesus is saying, I agree, and I have 2 witnesses. One of them is myself. The other one is the Father in heaven. We both witness to that fact that I came from there. Now, do you remember what the Father from heaven said when Jesus came out of the waters of baptism? There it is, see? This is my beloved Son. And again on the Mount of Transfiguration. And so he calls up and he said, so there really are two. Then they say to him, where is your Father? Jesus answered, you know neither me nor my Father. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. So there's no use me answering that because you don't know my Father. You don't know who you're talking about. But if you knew me, you would know my Father also. Now, are we getting pretty close to the argument, I am divine? In other words, my Father is in heaven. See? And so he shows this. And so then it's when they tried to lay their hands on him, that is, arrest him. Now then, Jesus, the next statement, claims he will go back to his Father. And if they don't believe him, they will die in their sins. So first part, he says, I came from the Father. Now then he says, I'm going back to the Father. And he said, I'm going away and you will seek me and will die in your sins. Where I am, you cannot come. We looked at this last week. And therefore, he tells them, I am from above and ye of this world. I am not of this world. So he's claiming he's not of this world. He's from above. You don't know where I came from, and you don't know where I'm going, but where I'm going, you can't come. Now, if you were arguing with somebody that you didn't like, would that upset you? See? Would that provoke you? This is what I'm saying, that when we look at Jesus and we see what he says, it is just awesome how he's leading them into a certain point. So they then are saying, well, who are you? And Jesus said to them, just what I have been saying to you from the beginning. I have nothing new to add. I'm just the same as I have been telling you all the time. And I have many things to say and to judge concerning you. But he who sent me is true, that is my Father, and I speak to the world those things which I heard from him. But I want you to know, as I'm talking to you people now, I'm really not telling you anything that I have made up. The only thing I'm telling you is what I have heard from my Father who is in heaven. So notice how this, of course, is going to really agitate them. So they then didn't understand. And then Jesus tells them in verse 28, now when I am lifted up, then you will know. Well, of course, this boggles their mind. What could this be? And so he goes ahead talking about what the Father has said and so forth. But what he's actually saying is, if you want absolute visible proof, you're going to have to wait until I have been lifted up. Well, what is your question? Suppose I told you that about me. There are certain things you're not going to know about me until I have been lifted up. Then it will be clear. Wonder? Somebody tell me how I'm going to be lifted up in a way you're not going to be. Is that clear? I mean, clear in your mind that, yeah, Lowell's going to be lifted up in a way the rest of us aren't. You say, no, I couldn't even make a guess. I couldn't even stab at something. But you and I know what it's talking about. It's talking about his death. He's going to be buried, and he's going to be raised again. So he's talking about his death, and then when he is resurrected from that grave, it will become obvious, nobody can argue about it, that he is divine. That is going to be the thing that closes this whole argument. Now then, we get to the new part that we haven't talked about in any way. Now keep in mind, this controversy is about his divinity. That is he divine or is he not? So then he comes back with them, and he said, now the truth shall make you free. Now, he's setting the stage to show his deity because he is the Son of God and has the truth, and they're the servants of sin. That's what he's going to show. He's going to show, I'm God's Son, I have the truth, and the truth will make you free, which is another way of saying, unless you listen to me, you're never going to find true freedom because you are servants. We're servants how? I'm a son, you're a servant. Now, it's not until the Son sets you free that you're really going to be free. This is true. If you take somebody in slavery, you look back a couple hundred years ago, and suppose that a slave ran away and set himself free. He runs off, he hides, gets away from his master, he's free. Was he really free? Or was he just temporarily away from his master and his master still owned him, his master still controlled him? People are going to be chasing him down. When they find him, they're going to take him back to his master. He will be in worse condition than he was before he ran away. No, a runaway slave is not truly free. But if the son of that master comes in and tells his servant, I'm giving you the papers and I am setting you totally, completely free. So that man then could take those papers and go out, and he was totally free. The son can do that because the son is part ownership with the father. This is what Jesus is going to show them. Now, as we start out, keep this in mind. Jesus here is saying, now, the truth is what will make you free, nothing else, and I have the truth because I am the Son. You are servants, and you do not have the power to set yourself free. Well, that's going to start you thinking. What is this guy talking about? Here it is. What's he doing this? So notice what he says. Jesus said to the Jews who believed him, there were some there who believed him, he said, if you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So he's urging the people that believed him, you just keep on believing in me, because when you believe in me, you will know the truth, and it's that truth that will set you free. Well, the enemies answered back. They said, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been in bondage to anyone. How can you say you will be made free? Now, there's an argument, and that argument is a lie. Part of it's a truth, part of it's a lie. We are Abraham's descendants. They were. The Jewish nation was Abraham's descendants. We have never been in bondage. Had they? Yeah, they had been in Egyptian bondage, Assyrian bondage, Babylonian bondage. Yeah, they had been in all these bondages, but of course they're glossing over them and saying, no, we've never been in bondage. So Jesus answered them. Now, he's not wanting to convince them that they've been in bondage. He's not going to get off the subject and say, oh, yes, you have been in bondage. You were in bondage to, remember, 70 years you were in bondage to the Babylonians. And then they argue, and then he argues. Then we're arguing about, have you been... He's going to pass that whole thing by. What's the one thing that he's driving for? He's driving one point, and that is his divinity. So Jesus answered them, most assuredly, I say to you, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. He's not even going to mention Egyptian or Babylonian bondage. But anybody who commits sin is a slave of sin. And a slave does not abide in the house forever. Well, this is true. You look at any slave in any place, he's always died and or sold or something, but the Son abides in the house forever. Just a couple of days ago, I was talking to Jared and Jordan, and they asked me about our ancestors. And I said, well, I've got a niece back in Illinois. She's run some ancestors down, and so here and here, and so I went back and found some of it. And so as I look at this, why, here's an ancestor and my great-great-great-great-grandma, and in here, now here's this, and here's this. Now that'll never be changed. I am the great-great-great-great-great-grandson of somebody. I don't have any bragging material, but somebody back, you don't change that. My dad's name was Brian Williams. It'll always be that. When they look up genealogies 10,000 years from now, if you look up my genealogy, it will come back, and Lowell's father was Brian Williams. Jesus is the Son of God. It'll never be changed. But if you're a servant, it will be changed. I was going through and looking at it and found it interesting that here is the will of a person back in my lineage, and they were willing their effects to the people behind them. And so it sounded like they were real nice people. And they said, first of all, pay off all my debts so that we don't owe anything. Then give the milk cow to somebody. Then let my second daughter have the house and land that she's living on. And then give the other cattle to my son. And I will my slave to so-and-so. And she named her slave, was named Lizzie. Here it is. We got a slave there. Now that slave is not in the house. That's what I want you to see, not in the family. Jesus is making a play on this. Jesus is saying there's only one person that you can listen to really find freedom, and that is the Father or the Son. And he's claiming to be the Son. He said, therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. Do you see the logic that he's bringing in here? And now then he has them so that he's the rightful son, and they're nothing more than servants of sin. Well, will this irritate them? It sure will. So now then he contrasts his father with their father. And he says, I know that you're Abraham's descendants. I realize that. But you seek to kill me because my word has no place in you. I speak what I have seen with my father, and you do what you have seen with your father. So it said it's just normal. I understand. But I want you to know I speak what I've seen with my father. You're talking about what you've seen from your father. And he said, if you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from God. Abraham did not do this. You do the deeds of your father. So what he's saying now is, I know you're Abraham's descendants, but Abraham is not your father. If he were really your father, you would do as your father does, and Abraham would never kill somebody that told him the truth. And you're doing just exactly the opposite. Abraham's not your father, and so you're doing what your father says. Bang. Stop. What did I just get through saying? Jesus said, I know that you're the descendants of Abraham, but you're not the children of Abraham because you don't follow what Abraham would have done. You're following what you've seen from your father. The logic there is they have a father who's not Abraham. they're claiming Abraham's their father, and yet they're doing exactly the opposite that Abraham would do. So Jesus said, no, you're following the deeds of your father. So they yell out, we were not born in fornication, we have one father. Don't try to say that we're not Abraham's children. So Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me. For I proceed forth and come from God, nor have I come by myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? Notice I've got that in green. Does that show up? I was just wondering whether it shows up much or not. I guess it does. You do not understand my speech. Now, we've talked in this class back in chapter 1. There are different words in Greek for speech, just like there is in English. But Jesus is called the Word, and we talked about what that means. Now, this word speech means talking, just like you're hearing me talking. Blah, 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 I'm talking in reasonable English. And so you're listening to me, and my words, blah, 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 on this. And that's that word for that, blah, 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 talking, hearing the words. Because you're not able to listen to my word. That's a different word. That word means message, content. The thing I'm telling you. You cannot understand my, well, okay, let's turn it around here. I'm telling you this morning, you can't understand my language that I'm speaking. Even though we both speak good old American, why, you can't understand it because you don't understand the message I'm trying to get across to you. See? And, of course, that's saying a lot to them. See? He's telling us we don't understand what he has to say. So now he tells them who their father is. He said, you are of your father, the devil. And it's it's his desire that you teach his and so forth. He was a murderer from the beginning. When he speaks lies, he speaks from his own resources. For he's a liar and the father thereof. But I tell you, you do not believe me. Which of you convicts me of sin? So now he throws a new thing in here. We're in a big argument here. I'm taking the place of Jesus this morning, and you're the Jews. Now, we're in a big argument. And I'm telling you where I'm from, where I'm going, and you're making claims you're Abraham's children, and I'm telling you, no, you're descendants of Abraham, but you're really not his children because you don't act like Abraham. And you have a different father, and your father is the devil, and you do what he teaches you to do, and so forth. And then he comes down in here, he's the father of this, and then he throws a new thing in here and says, oh, by the way, which of you can convict me of sin? Anybody in here can tell me anything I've ever done wrong or I've ever said wrong? Tell me some mistake I've made. Can anybody? Now, is that claiming perfection? See? What would you think of me if I made that claim today? See? Think about it in that way. Wow, nobody on the earth would make such a claim as that. Nobody. We'd all say, oh, I might make one little mistake somewhere along the line or something. Nobody would make that. But he makes it. Now, will that agitate a little bit more? Irritate? Cause them to come back at him? You see, he's leading them into this. Now, if I tell you the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears God's word. Therefore, you do not hear because you are not of God. So let's face it. You people are not of God. You people are not Abraham's descendants. You are children of the devil, and I am a perfect man who has lived a perfect life in front of you. What a claim. So we see that claim, and wow. Now then, Jesus claims that he's older than Abraham. They're taking refuge in Abraham, and he's going to say, Abraham looked up at me. So they said, oh, you just got a demon. When you make claims like that, you've got a demon. No, I have no demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. And I do not seek my glory. There is one who seeks and judges. Most assuredly I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death. Now he comes back to this about my word, content, what I'm telling you. If you'll do that, you'll never see death. They then come back, now we know you got a demon. You have said if we keep what you say in here, we'll never see death. So don't you understand? Abraham died and the prophets died. Are you trying to tell me that you're greater than Abraham, who even himself is dead? Boy, Jesus, you just made a stupid statement. We've got you. You've said that if we keep your word, you'll never die, and you can't argue about Abraham, the prophets, and so forth. They were honest, sincere men. They were doing what God told them to do, and yet they're dead. Who do you make yourself out to be? So Jesus came back, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father who honors me, of whom you say that he is your God. Now the Father honors me, and yet you claim him to be your God. Yet you have not known him, but I know him. And if I say I do not know him, I shall be a liar like you. Will that provoke any more controversy? That going to cause any more coming? But I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham, now get ready. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Boy, what a statement. What would you do if I'd made the statement and told you that if you keep my word, you'll never die, and so you come up and you say, well, Abraham, and do this, and then I made the statement to telling you, oh, and you say, who do you think you are? Greater than Abraham? And I say, well, Abraham rejoiced. It thrilled him to death to see my day. That's what he was wanting to see. And he saw it. He saw it afar off, we are told in other passages. He gave his life walking the way God would have him to walk because he could see the Christ coming. That's what was promised to Abraham. Through thy seed shall all nations be blessed. It thrilled him. And Jesus said, that's my relationship with Abraham. That it wasn't I was thrilled to see Abraham. It was Abraham rejoiced. He was happy and contented to see my day when it was told that through him should all nations be blessed. Then the Jews said to him, you're not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham? Then Jesus said to them, most assuredly, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. Pow. Now, that's like taking a big sledgehammer and me busting it down on this podium. It's the final answer. If you want to talk about Abraham and me, and you want to know who I really am, before Abraham was ever born, I am. That I am is a word that means I exist. I never had a beginning. I never have an ending. The only thing that you can say about me is, I'm always here. I am. No beginning, no ending. Now, God has made that statement, hadn't he? You remember back when he called Moses? That's what he claimed. My name is I am. And now Jesus says the same thing. So now he exalts himself far, far above Abraham. Well, the Jews couldn't answer Jesus, so their response was to kill him. Just the only thing you can do is pick up stones and start to kill him. I want you to notice all the different ways now that we see the idea that they're trying to kill him. We're not going to read this. Our time is just up. But I put this up here just to let you see these Jews are dead set to kill Jesus. And as you look back and you say, why? He healed a man, crippled a man, on the Sabbath day. And then he is now claiming to be the Son of God. So they're in a life and death struggle at this particular time. And that's where we pick up chapter 9 next week, when a very interesting thing happens.